March 1943, 11:47 hours. The altimeter reads 28,000 feet, and Berlin spreads beneath us like a circuit board of fire. Through the Perspex, I spot the Führerbunker's vent stacks, tiny as matchsticks, and the Reichstag's shattered dome, a black tooth in the city's jaw. We're doing 420 miles per hour, which doesn't sound impossible until you remember this aircraft is made of wood. Not aluminum, not steel, wood. Plywood and balsa, glued together by cabinetmakers in Hertfordshire. The radio explodes with German voices, sharp with sheer disbelief. Unbekanntes Ziel, schnell. Unknown target, fast. They're vectoring Bf-109s from 3 airfields, scrambling pilots who were drinking coffee 90 seconds ago. I can picture them, leather helmets snapping, engines shrieking to life, propellers clawing at the freezing air. They believe they'll catch us. They always believe. But they can't. A Messerschmitt appears 10 o'clock low, a silver dart against the clouds. He burns momentum in a desperate climb, and I watch his wingtips shudder at the edge of a stall. We're already beyond him. Not because we're better pilots, we're not. But this mosquito sustains a climb where German fighters gasp for breath. He fires, tracers arc like fireworks, 1,000 feet astern. Flak bursts, bloom, black flowers with steel petals. The concussion rocks our wings, but the wooden frame flexes and holds. A metal airframe would shudder, rivets screaming. We absorb the blast and keep flying. Another fighter slides head-on, a combined closing speed of nearly 800 miles per hour. He has 1 second to aim. He misses. We're a ghost of timber and speed, and Berlin's defenses are punching at smoke.
This is the riddle that will torment Luftwaffe for 3 years. How does an unarmed bomber, built by furniture makers, dictate tempo over most defended sky on Earth? How does a plane that was mocked in design meetings, too fragile, too radical, a wooden wonder, become the thing that makes Goering's pilots feel obsolete? The stakes are absolute. Every mission gambles that glue and spruce can outlast cannon fire and ego. If we're wrong, we're not dead. We're a cautionary tale, proof RAF had lost its mind. If we're right, we rewrite air warfare. The Messerschmitt's engine howls in frustration as he peels away, out of altitude, out of options. Below, Berlin's flak crews still stare up at empty sky, wondering if they truly imagined us. Who thought wooden plane could outrun the Luftwaffe's best? In 1938, Geoffrey de Havilland walks into an air ministry meeting carrying what sounds like a suicide note disguised as an aircraft proposal. He wants to build a bomber without guns, not a single machine gun, just 2 crew members, pilot and navigator, and a fuselage of plywood. The room goes quiet. An Air Vice Marshal looks at him like he suggested fighting tanks with teaspoons. Every bomber since the Great War carried defensive armament. It's a doctrine carved in stone. Without guns, you're target practice. De Havilland's argument is simple. Weight saved means speed gained. Speed is armor. At 400 miles per hour, you simply don't get hit.
But the real heresy isn't the firepower, it's the materials. While every manufacturer scrambles for aluminum allocation, de Havilland proposes building his warplane from wood. Not because wood is superior, but because England's cabinet makers and piano factories already possess the tools and the skilled hands. While metal plants strain under bomb threat, the furniture industry sits idle. He sees an army of craftsmen ready to become aircraft builders, turning walnut veneers into wing spars and balsa into control surfaces. A classified Air Ministry memo circulates. Unarmed wooden bomber concept, fundamentally unsound, vulnerable to enemy fighters, unsuitable for modern warfare. The language is polite, but the message is clear. Madness. Senior commanders shake their heads over tea, dismissing the idea as a hobbyist's fantasy that would cost lives.
Then May 1940 arrives. France collapses in 6 weeks. The British Expeditionary Force abandons equipment at Dunkirk. Aluminum stockpiles, already rationed, now face years of desperate shortage. German bombers hammer London nightly, and the desperate RAF needs a solution yesterday. The memo is pulled from file, creased edges reread in desperation. Suddenly, de Havilland's crazy idea has one thing going for it: feasibility. His small band of believers, engineers who've watched him build record-breaking racers before, push the prototype through the bureaucracy. They design an internal bomb bay, no external racks, every rivet shaved for drag reduction. 2 crew instead of 5 means less weight, less oxygen demand, less of everything that slows an aircraft down. The mathematics of speed become their secret language.
But the critics haven't surrendered. When the prototype rolls out in November 1940, they gather like mourners at a funeral. The wooden fuselage gleams under factory lights, almost beautiful in its absurdity. One observer whispers, "They'll be shot down in the first week." Another bets a bottle of whiskey it won't reach Berlin at all. The aircraft looks too slight, too fragile. It's assembled by men who normally craft grandfather clocks, not war machines. Glue scents the air where welding torches should be. The mockery hangs thick, and their careers are on the line. If it fails, they were right. If it flies, everything changes. Wood sounds like compromise, but for the Mosquito, it was the weapon itself. While aluminum aircraft are built like iron safes, riveted panels, overlapping seams, every joint a point of drag, the Mosquito is crafted like a violin. 2 halves of fuselage are molded in concrete forms, each a sandwich of birch plywood and balsa core. The outer skin is a single, seamless curve, no rivets, no bumps, nothing to disturb the air slipping past at 400 miles per hour. Imagine a metal bomber's flank. You feel every rivet head, every patch, every place where plates overlap. Each is a tiny handhold for the wind, creating turbulence, stealing speed. The Mosquito's skin is different. It's a monocoque, French for single shell, where structure and surface are one. Wind flows over it like water over a stone, clean and silent. That smoothness alone buys 20 miles per hour. In air combat, 20 miles per hour is the difference between life and a funeral.
The construction method is revolutionary because it's medieval. While Supermarine and Hawker fight for scarce aluminum, de Havilland subcontracts to furniture makers and piano factories. These craftsmen don't need welding torches, they have saws, clamps, and glue presses. The fuselage halves cure in workshops that normally craft dining tables. A cabinet maker in High Wycombe shapes a wing spar with the same care he'd give a Queen Anne chair leg. This distributed manufacturing means bomb damage to one factory doesn't stop production, it just shifts to another town's mill. Early prototypes use casein glue, derived from milk, but it weakens in damp conditions. Production models switch to synthetic resins, aerolite and resorcinol. These adhesives are so strong that when engineers test a sample, the wood fibers tear before the glue line fails. The bond becomes permanent, chemical, stronger than the tree itself. Weight savings cascade everywhere. No heavy turrets, no gunners, no ammunition belts. The Mosquito weighs half what a Wellington bomber does, yet carries the same bomb load. Power comes from 2 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, the same heart that beats in a Spitfire. But because the Mosquito is lighter, it climbs faster. The design philosophy is brutal and simple. Outrun, don't outgun. If you're never where bullets are aimed, you don't need armor plate. Critics call it fragile. They're about to watch it outrun the RAF's own fighters in a head-to-head trial. What looks delicate is about to prove it's faster than fear itself. November 25, 1940. The prototype, serial W4050, rolls from de Havilland's Hatfield hangar in pre-dawn gloom. It looks wrong, too slight, too clean, like a racing yacht mistaken for a bomber. Test pilot Jeffrey de Havilland Jr. straps in, fires the twin Merlins, and releases brakes. The Mosquito surges forward, lifting off in half the distance a Wellington needs. Within minutes, it's holding 300 miles per hour in level flight. By the hour's end, de Havilland pushes it past 380 at 15,000 feet. The wooden frame doesn't shudder.
It hums. Ground crews swear they hear the engines singing in key.
The data lands on Air Ministry desks like a fist. This bomber is faster than the RAF's own frontline fighters at altitude. Spitfire Mark IIs max out at 355. The Mosquito just walked away from them. Skeptics demand a live trial. They get one. A week later, 2 Spitfires scramble to intercept W4050 over the channel. The Mosquito's navigator radios contact, 2 o'clock, closing fast. The fighters pour on power, burning fuel, clawing for height. They cannot close the gap. The Mosquito pilot eases throttles back, almost casually, and still the Spitfires fall behind. One squeezes off a burst from extreme range. Tracers streak past slick memories. The Mosquito is already gone, a speck vanishing into the haze before the Spitfires can even reform. In the ops room, senior officers watch the radar plot in stunned, disbelieving silence. The wooden bomber they mocked is outrunning their best. Within 48 hours, the first production order arrives. 50 aircraft, then another 100. Language shifts from experimental oddity to priority asset. The memo writers, who called it fundamentally unsound, are now signing requisition forms, their signatures tight with embarrassment. Some quietly request transfer to other projects. The laughter has stopped.
But de Havilland knows the truth. Outrunning friends is one thing. Surviving the enemy is another. The Luftwaffe doesn't play fair. They have cannon that tear through metal like paper. They have pilots blooded over Poland, France, and London. Pilots who've learned to kill in the vertical, who don't need a second chance. The real exam hasn't started. The next test won't be measured in miles per hour, but in lives lost or saved. And the first of those tests is already being prepared, not in any British mock dogfight, but over a German city that has never yet been touched by daylight. The camera that Germany cannot catch is already airborne before dawn. In the ops room at ARAF Benson, the squadron commander pins a route across the map: Cologne, Duisburg, the Ruhr heartland. No escort, no guns, just speed and altitude. The Mosquito PR Mark I climbs into pressurized comfort at 35,000 feet, where human breath fails, but the Merlins still sing. At 405 miles per hour, the camera shutter clicks in steady rhythm, each frame a stolen secret. The crew breathes easy while Germany sleeps below. Below, in a Luftwaffe control bunker near Calais, the phone shrieks, "Hochfliegendes Ziel, schnell!" High-flying target, fast. The controller vectors 2 Focke-Wulf 190s, but his voice already sags with defeat. The fighters claw upward, engines overheating, pilots sucking thin oxygen through masks. They level off at 32,000, 3 miles behind. The Mosquito is a speck, a glint, a ghost. They fire. Cannon shells arc and fall short, vanishing into the void. The controller watches the radar blip cross the Rhine, then fade. Another mission complete. Another failure logged. The pilots land, sullen, knowing they were beaten by a phantom.
The statistics become a weapon of their own. While bomber crews accept 5% loss rates as grim arithmetic, Mosquito PR squadrons lose 1 aircraft per 100 sorties. Speed is armor. Altitude is sanctuary. Intelligence pours in. Rocket sites at Peenemünde, battleship movements at Kiel, factory complexes sprouting in the Black Forest. Churchill studies the photos over breakfast, while Goering studies the reports over schnapps. The Führer demands explanations no general can provide. The Reichsmarshal's fury builds. In a staff meeting, he slams his fist on mahogany table, wood ironically, and growls, "The bitches build a wooden aircraft in every piano factory and we cannot catch it." The words sting because they're true. Germany's finest engineers, masters of metal and rivet, are being humiliated by cabinet makers. The mosquito doesn't just steal photographs, it steals dignity. It proves that speed beats armor, that imagination beats doctrine. In the RAF ops room, the next mission is already being plotted. Not just cameras this time. Bombs. The same speed that makes the mosquito invisible to interceptors makes it perfect for something else. Precision. While the Luftwaffe chases ghosts over the Ruhr, a new payload is being fitted, blockbusters for the Gestapo headquarters in Oslo, maybe, or a prison in Amiens. The piano factories are about to prove they can do more than take pictures. They can break things.
Fast-paced, straight, energetic dopamine riser. The wooden ghost finally becomes a precision weapon. On January 30th, 1943, 9 mosquitoes lift from England, cross the North Sea, and bore into German airspace at 300 feet. Not 30,000, 300. They hide in radar clutter. German operators see nothing until a shadow flickers across a farmhouse roof. Berlin. Göring is scheduled to speak at the Sportpalast for the 10th anniversary of Nazi rise. Radio transmitters are hot, microphones checked, crowds chanting. The mosquitoes climb to 5,000 feet over the city, release their bombs, and vanish before the first flat gun can traverse. The speech never even airs. Propagandists fill dead air with static and desperate excuses. 9 aircraft, no escort, no losses. Speed is armor. The math is brutal. A 2-man crew means less weight, less oxygen consumption, less drag. No turrets means no gun barrels, no ammunition weight. The Merlins push a clean wooden airframe through the sky faster than logic suggests possible. Radar gives perhaps 90 seconds of warning, enough to sound alarm, not vector fighters. By the time a Bf-109 reaches altitude, the mosquito is 100 miles away. A memory of engine noise.
But daylight precision demands more than speed. It demands courage at zero margin. The next evolution drops lower. Operation Jericho will see mosquitoes skim treetops to breach Amiens' prison walls, freeing resistance fighters. The margin for error, 6 feet of wingtip clearance. One twitch, one gust, and a wooden bomber becomes kindling in a French field. Then comes Operation Carthage, Copenhagen, March 1945. Mosquitoes strike Gestapo headquarters, flying so low between buildings that propellers throw harbor spray. They hit the target, but one aircraft clips a lamppost. The crash kills crew and civilians. A reminder that in the weeds, speed meets trees, masts, and fate. The mosquito's genius is also its deadly gamble. At altitude, it's untouchable. Down low, it's a racing car on a cliff edge. The same wooden structure that flexes under flak can shatter against a chimney. The 2-man crew that saves weight leaves no redundancy if one is wounded. Speed beats guns until it simply doesn't. Yet the effect is undeniable. While 1,000-bomber raids hammer cities into anonymity, mosquito strikes disrupt Nazi command rhythm. A canceled speech, a destroyed records office, a prison wall breached at dawn. These pinpricks bleed authority. Piano Factory built a scalpel where others wield sledgehammers. But the scalpel cuts both ways.
The mosquito alarm sounds in Luftwaffe control rooms from Norway to France. It's not a siren. It's a cold sweat that prickles when radar operators spot a lone blip moving too fast, too high, refusing to behave like proper bomber. By late 1942, Göring's staff stops laughing and starts scrambling. They rush Bf-109G models into service, engines boosted to catch the mosquito's 400-mile-per-hour cruise. They strip armor from FW-190As, sacrificing protection for climb rate. But the trap can't close fast enough. The wooden ghost always stays 3 minutes ahead. Night becomes the new battlefield. German engineers bolt Liechtenstein radar into Bf-110s and U-88s, turning them into night hunters that can see through darkness.
The radar's dish protrudes like antlers, sweeping the sky for echoes. They developed Schrägemusik, upward-firing cannons mounted at 60 degrees. A night fighter slips beneath a bomber, unseen, and rips its belly open before the crew knows they're there. It's devastating against Lancasters. The Mosquito, though, hears the radar pulse and simply accelerates. The signal fades, lost in ground clutter or distance. The RAF flips the script. If the Germans want to hunt at night, so will we. Mosquito NF Mk2 arrives with AI, airborne interception, radar crammed into its nose. The same wooden airframe that once carried cameras now stalks German bombers over their own airfields. A Mosquito intruder circles Berlin's outskirts, radar humming, waiting for a Heinkel to lift off. When it does, the Mosquito falls on it like a hawk, cannon silent until the final second. German crews taxi to runway with engines at idle, hoping to avoid detection. They call it the Mosquito Nacht, Mosquito Night, a psychological fog thicker than any flak.
But the edge is narrowing. German radar improves. Operators learn to vector 3 fighters simultaneously, creating a net instead of a single pursuit. The Mosquito's wooden structure, so brilliant at altitude, begins to show stress under the violent maneuvers of night combat. A hard pull at 400 knots can delaminate a wing spar. The glue holds, but the margins shrink. The question stops being, can we catch them, and becomes, can we survive the catch? The Mosquito's wooden skeleton reveals its first fatal flaw in the tropics. Over Burma and the Pacific, casein glue, milk-based, reliable and English damp, softens in 90-degree humidity. Wings delaminate mid-flight, plywood peeling like wet paper. Engineers scramble, switching to synthetic resins, aerolite, resorcinol. These new adhesives bond stronger than the wood itself, but the fix arrives late. Some crews discover the weakness at the worst moment, when ailerons go soft during a monsoon climb, leaving them with a bird that cannot turn and a fate sealed by gravity. Low-level flight exposes a different, unforgiving danger. At 300 feet, speed is no shield against geography. Operation Jericho sees Mosquitoes skimming treetops toward Amiens prison. The margin is 6 feet. A navigator misreads a map, a wingtip brushes a poplar. The aircraft cartwheels into French soil, killing crew and prisoners alike. In Copenhagen, a Mosquito clips a power line mast, cartwheeling into a school. The strike frees resistance fighters, but costs Danish children their lives. Precision cuts both ways, and the blade is sharp as guilt. Flak is the constant companion. At altitude, bursts are distant fireworks. Down in the weeds, every shell is a personal threat. The wooden airframe absorbs shock better than metal. It flexes, doesn't shatter. But a direct hit still turns spruce to splinters. On the Amiens raid, one Mosquito takes a shell through the wing. The hold is man-sized, but the aircraft flies home because the structure is redundant. Damage spreads through the sandwich construction instead of concentrating at a single rivet line. Top-tier German fighters occasionally get lucky. A Bf-109 G6 with a crack pilot diving from the sun can close the gap. In 1944, a Mosquito PR variant falls to a FW-190A8 over the Baltic. The German pilot reports it burned like any other. Late-war jets changed the equation. Me-262s streak past at 500 miles per hour, but their cannons are inaccurate at high closure speeds. Only 3 Mosquitoes are confirmed lost to jets, and each such victory costs the German pilot precious fuel and engine hours he cannot replace. Loss rates tell the brutal truth. Heavy bomber squadrons accept 5% attrition per mission as normal arithmetic. Mosquito units average 0.7%. Reconnaissance squadrons lose 1 aircraft per 200 sorties, a fraction of conventional losses. But low is not 0. Jericho loses 2 of 19 aircraft. Carthage loses 1 in 4. The wooden wonder is not invincible. It's a calculated risk that sometimes fails catastrophically and without warning. In Copenhagen, a mother sweeps glass from her daughter's desk, shattered by propeller wash.
She doesn't care about glue chemistry or loss percentages. She cares that a British aircraft built to save lives took one instead. The moral weight of precision warfare is that every bomb aimed at a prison wall still lands in a neighborhood, and every advantage carries a human invoice that must eventually be paid. Even with scars, the idea had changed the air war permanently. The Mosquito evolves from mocked prototype to master of all trades. It carries cameras over Berlin, bombs through clouds, hunts at night, guides heavy bombers, sinks ships off Norway. By war's end, over 7,700 have rolled out of factories in Britain, Canada, and Australia. Not just aircraft plants, but furniture mills and piano workshops converted to war production. Cabinet makers become aircraft builders, their tools unchanged, their product transformed.
The strategic lesson crystallizes. Agility plus precision plus speed can defeat brute force. While 1,000 bomber raids flatten cities, Mosquito strikes disable Gestapo headquarters, free prisoners, interrupt speeches. Each mission costs less, risks fewer lives, and achieves disproportionate effect. The wooden airframe isn't a compromise, it's a multiplier. Post-war designers study the formula. The American F-104 Starfighter, the British Lightning, they chase the same principle: speed as survival, minimal armor, maximum performance. The Mosquito proves that a lightly built, sharply focused platform can set the tempo of war, not just support it. One myth needs burial. Wood didn't make the Mosquito invisible to radar. German operators tracked it clearly. What mattered was time. The wooden structure's low drag and clean lines let it cross detection thresholds faster than fighters could climb. By the time a radar operator called the scramble, the Mosquito had already won 90 seconds. In air war, 90 seconds is eternity. The audacity remains the point. A bomber without guns, built by craftsmen, outrunning fighters and outsmarting doctrine. That idea rewrote the rules. It taught that innovation isn't always about more power or more armor. Sometimes it's about seeing a piano factory and imagining an aircraft. Sometimes it's about trusting speed to be shield enough.
Berlin still looms in the story. The city that first felt the Mosquito's cameras will feel its bombs one more time, in a daylight run that proves the final point. The Wooden Wonder didn't just survive the war. It defined how the war would be fought. The altimeter reads 30,000 feet, and Berlin spreads beneath us one last time. It's April 1945, and the city smolders from 1,000 fires. But our target is surgical, the Reich Chancellery's communication bunker. We cross the coast at 430 miles per hour, the wooden wings humming their final war song. Flak bursts still claw upward, but they're desultory now, the gunners exhausted and low on shells. A lone FW-190 rises to intercept, but his engine coughs. Low-grade fuel, a dying regime's last gamble. We don't even jink. We're gone before he can level his wings, leaving only contrails and frustration. The navigator marks the target in his logbook with a single word: last. The bomb falls true, the bunker collapses, and just like that, the Mosquito's war ends not with a 1,000-plane armada, but with a whisper of engines over a broken capital. The war diary will record it as routine. The crew knows it as poetry. In the silence that follows, after the Merlins stop turning, after the glue cures for the last time, after the factories return to making chairs and cabinets, the laughter starts again. But it's different. It's the nervous chuckle of historians who can't quite believe the numbers. 7,700 wooden aircraft, loss rates a fraction of the heavies. A bomber that outran its own escorts and made fools of the Luftwaffe's best. The craftsmen who built them returned to their workshops, their hands still stained with resource and all, their pride silent but permanent, their secret safe forever.
Goering's complaint becomes the epitaph. The British build a wooden aircraft in every piano factories, and we cannot catch it. He meant it as rage, but history hears it as confession. The piano builders won. The cabinet makers outmaneuvered the generals and rewrote the rules of engagement. The Mosquito doesn't become a museum piece immediately. It serves in other skies, other wars, its wooden bones aging, but still humming. But its real legacy is the idea it proved that when resources vanish, ingenuity sharpens, that speed can be armor, that the thing they mock in design reviews might be the thing that defines the war room. The underdog doesn't just survive, it sets the tempo. Post-war jets like the F-104 Starfighter and English Electric Lightning chase the same formula, but the Mosquito wrote the proof in Plywood and Merlin exhaust, showing that less could be more for generations. Today, we face our own constraints, shrinking budgets, scarce materials, doctrines we think unbreakable. Somewhere, a modern engineer is sketching something absurd, too light, too fast, too strange to survive committee. The question isn't whether they'll laugh. They always laugh. The question is whether that engineer will have the stubbornness to build it anyway, to trust the math over the mockery, to risk everything on an idea that smells like truth in a room of doubt. What impossible idea today will be tomorrow's wooden wonder? At dusk, a single mosquito sits on a grass field. Its fuselage glows amber in the last light, the grain of the birch visible beneath clear lacquer. It looks less like a weapon than a musical instrument waiting for breath, waiting for a pilot who understands that fragility and strength are not opposites, but partners in flight, bound by courage, vision, unbreakable trust. Those who laughed couldn't catch it. Those who built it never forgot. What impossible idea today will be tomorrow's wooden wonder? The next mosquito is already being built in a garage.